Well, good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Smart Eco Hub for giving me the opportunity here to present my road to renewables, how I changed from farming into renewable sector. A wee bit about the farm history. It's a family-owned farm. We've had it for 5 generations. There's 52 hectares there, which is 130 acres. 120 of those are planted in short rotation coppice willow, and the remainder is made up of miscanthus grass and traditional grass. It's in the townlands of Clare and Ballynabracket, which is just outside the village of Warringstown. It's located on the Down and Armagh border. Traditionally a dairy farm, and we grew our own cereals, barley, wheat and maize. Fairly good soil, standard clay loam ground, nothing fancy about the ground at all. A bit about my own background. You can see there I've been involved in farming for over 40 years, lived on the farm, worked there. As most people in the farming community, followed down in my father's footsteps, took on the traditional family farming and attended agricultural college at Greenmount during the 80s. And it was at Greenmount where we were taught maximum production, get the most out of your acre, utilise your ground and get the highest possible yields. So it was fairly high input, which was giving a high output, and at that time there was good profits in agriculture. And over the years then that changed, that there was a lot of higher inputs, same outputs and lower profits. As an example of that, back in '89 when I was milking, I was getting over 22 pence per litre for milk. And one of the main costs in agriculture obviously is your diesel costs. They were 10 pence, and meal was about £140 a tonne. And you'll see there then a few years later, milk average price for 2004 had dropped to just over 18 pence, whereas my costs, like diesel, had went up 4 times in price, up to 40 pence. Meal had almost doubled in price. They're the biggest costs, your meal and your input costs, obviously, for agriculture. I had nowhere to turn to get to higher incomes. With the price of diesel going up, the cost of contractors making the silage had increased. The diesel and the meal had increased. I phoned the milk plant up and says, my costs are getting too high here. How can I get a better income? You're going to have to pay me a slightly extra ½ per month for the milk. And they said, no, we're actually taking £0.25 off you, because it's costing us more to go out and lift your milk. So I had no choice. I could not ask or get the cows to make any more milk. I was being done at both ends. The farm had adopted a self-sufficiency approach in that we cut our own maize, made our own meal, cut our own silage. We were trying to lower costs and keep everything in-house as much as possible to try and get profits to go up. But even by doing that, with the high costs of all our outlays, our meal, fertiliser, etc., it was impossible to make the farm profitable. So the reasons for diversification, the farm needed modernisation. Like any business, we had to put financial investment in. I was using my father's dairy unit, which needed updated. It was going to be a lot of money to meet new legislation on slurry stores. There was a lot of new restrictions coming in, environmental issues. So it was a major investment. £200,000 to £300,000 was going to have to be put into the farm business. And with low profits there, high costs, it wasn't a very nice thought of having to spend all that money and not knowing if I was going to have a secure future. One of the main things was we had no control over the product. I don't know another industry that doesn't invoice. I was producing milk, letting it go out the gates, the lorry came and lifted it, and away it went to the factory. I had to wait a month to see what I was getting. I didn't invoice for that product, and I don't know of any other industry that doesn't invoice for what it makes. So I wanted more control over my product. I wanted to secure a future for the farm and obviously try and turn the farm into a profitable business. So why did we go the green energy route? I had seen biomass and renewables working throughout Scandinavia, Central Europe, and particularly in Austria. And Austria is a very similar country to Ireland in population and landmass size. And during the early 70s, the government adopted a policy that every farmer had to donate 10% of his land to forestry. Now, being farmers, it got created a bit of a uproar at the time, losing 10% of your ground. But what it has done now, years later, is create a forestry industry in Austria, which is utilised. There's a lot more jobs now. The farmers are glad of this 10% of the ground being in forestry, because it's actually making them in some cases, a lot more money than what the agriculture is. So it set up a whole new industry, and Austria now has about 53–56% land coverage in trees, and is very self-sufficient in its own energy resources. I wanted to go into a crop, something that I could utilise my existing farmland. Obviously, we had it there. I wanted to grow something, process it, and supply it to the end user with having nobody else in the middle. So I had total control from start to finish. And I can, if my costs go up for harvesting, or I can invoice higher, put 5–10% onto my final product. And so I have total control the whole way through. Obviously at that time there was big government targets had to be met. There was public attitude and awareness towards climate change and renewables, so it seemed a good sector to put my £200,000 to £300,000 into, other than agriculture. So a new era was beginning for us then. We decided to change the farm policy back in 2004, and I formed the company Green Energy Technology. It was running in conjunction along with the farm for the first year. I was just dipping our toe in the water with the company to see how reaction went to it. Big demand then for obviously renewables and biomass, so we had to dispose of the cows, the milking herd then in 2005, and that led to getting the challenge fund for willows, and we planted then in years 2005 and 2006, we planted 120 acres of willow. And the aim is to have a 3-year harvest, so we have 40 acres to harvest every year. As the business grew then, we developed, made use of the vacant buildings on the farm, and we modernised by building a new showroom, offices and conference suite back in 2009. And the farm now, 10 years since we changed from dairying, the willow crop is now established. We're going through our rotations, getting our harvest done every 3 years, 1,000 tonnes of dry wood chip per year. And the farm has now got a secure future in that we have long-term contracts for our product. I'm in control of the product, and I can get an increase every year, and I'm invoicing every load that goes out of my gates now, instead of letting it go and having no control over it. And the company itself, 10 years later, we have worked hard now. We've achieved the most accredited company for renewable technologies in Northern Ireland. We offer the largest range of biomass systems in Northern Ireland. We're sole agents for the #1 selling biomass system in Austria, the multi-award winning Hergasner range of biomass systems. And we have over 3,000 installations to date. Green Energy Technology also supplies not only biomass systems, solar PV technology, solar thermal technology, air source heat pumps, full heating controls, distribution, plumbing, electrical works. We're in a full range of technologies. A few examples there, very popular at the moment, are these containerised units or heat modules, where everything is incorporated into one plug-and-play unit. They can be dropped onto site, leased to the customer or bought by the customer. Contains the boiler, the fuel store, all the controls are inside it. If at any stage the customer decides they don't want it, it can be lifted away, simply out of the road. It's a portable structure and can be sold anywhere across Europe. So they're very popular, those containerised units. A few pictures there, slides. That's obviously on the left there, the willows being harvested. People have already talked about that, and they're pushed into the store, and the hot air is blown up through the wood chip. We dry the wood chip down to below 20% moisture, which means it's a very stable wood chip. The lower the moisture content, the higher the calorific value. There's no moulds or fungus grow on the wood chip when it's below 20% moisture. So it's a very stable product, keeps very well, and is easily delivered to local sites. Again, it's a natural, willows are a natural species to Ireland. They blend into the countryside and grow very well. And there's a typical example, an 18th century castle that we plumbed and wired to put in a biomass heating system. We just deliver the wood chip in lorry and tractor trailer loads there. Typically during the winter they're taking 1 load per week, and that would be about summertime, 1 load every 3 weeks. They're utilising 130 tonnes of wood chip to heat the castle, and they've reduced their, it used to be electric heating in the castle, and they've reduced their bill by about £30,000 per year on the initial boiler. The boiler on its own actually cost about £60,000, so very, very short payback on that system. And thank you very much for listening. Mine's short and sweet.